A single dad was rejected on Christmas blind date. Then a woman asked, "Can you be my husband? You are not my type." The words hung in the air like shards of broken glass, and Nathan Cole felt every single one of them slice through his chest as he sat frozen in his chair at Giuseppe's Italian restaurant on Christmas Eve. The woman across from him, Jennifer, was already standing up, pulling her designer coat over her shoulders with the kind of practiced indifference that suggested she had done this before, that walking out on someone mid-date was just another Tuesday for her. Nathan opened his mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. His throat had closed up completely, and all he could do was watch as Jennifer adjusted her purse strap and looked down at him with an expression that landed somewhere between pity and disgust. "I'm looking for someone without baggage," she added, as if the first blow had not been enough. "Good luck finding what you are looking for," and then she was gone. Weaving through the crowded restaurant, without a backward glance, leaving Nathan alone at a table set for two with a half-empty bread basket and two untouched glasses of red wine. The candle between them flickered mockingly, and somewhere in the background, Frank Sinatra crooned about having yourself a merry little Christmas, while Nathan felt his entire world crumble for what seemed like the 100th time. He could feel the eyes of other diners on him, could sense their uncomfortable glances and whispered comments. The elderly couple 2 tables over quickly looked away when he caught them staring. A group of women near the window pretended to be deeply interested in their menus. The waiter, who had been so cheerful earlier, now approached with the careful sympathy of someone who had witnessed the whole disaster unfold. "Sir, can I get you anything else?" the young man asked quietly. Nathan shook his head, not trusting his voice. He reached for his water glass just to have something to do with his hands, and that is when he noticed they were trembling. 37 years old, a grown man with a responsible job, and a daughter he loved more than life itself. And here he was, shaking like a leaf because another woman had decided he was not worth her time. The restaurant was beautiful. He had to admit that much. Giuseppe's had gone all out for the holiday season, with twinkling white lights strung along the exposed brick walls, fresh evergreen garlands draped over the bar, and a magnificent Christmas tree in the corner that must have been at least 12 feet tall. The air smelled like garlic and Pinot and expensive wine, and every table seemed to be filled with happy couples and families celebrating the season together. Every table except his. Nathan pulled out his phone more out of habit than anything else, and his heart clenched out when he saw the lock screen. It was a photo Emma had insisted he take that morning, a picture of the reindeer she had drawn for him, with crayons and glitter glue. The reindeer was lopsided, and the glitter had gotten everywhere, including in Emma's blonde curls, and somehow on the ceiling of their small kitchen. But she had been so proud of it that Nathan had immediately declared it the best reindeer he had ever seen. "This is Rudolph, Daddy," she had explained very seriously while handing him the drawing. "He is going to help Santa find our house tonight, so Santa knows where to bring my presents." "That is very smart thinking, sweetheart," Nathan had told her, kneeling down to her level. "Santa is definitely going to find us now." Emma had beamed at him with that gap-toothed smile that never failed to make everything better. And for a moment, Nathan had actually felt hopeful about tonight. His sister Claire had set up this blind date weeks ago, promising that Jennifer was different, that she was kind and patient, and would love Emma the moment she met her. Claire had been wrong. The date had started well enough. Jennifer was attractive and well-dressed, and she had laughed at Nathan's nervous jokes while they waited for their appetizers. But then she had asked the question that always came eventually, the question that Nathan had learned to dread more than anything else in the world. "So, do you have any kids?" He had smiled, because he could not help but smile when talking about Emma. "I have a daughter," he had said already, reaching for his phone to show her a picture. "Her name is Emma. She is 7, and she is absolutely the light of my life. She drew me this reindeer this morning, see? She is convinced it is going to help Santa find our house." Nathan had expected Jennifer to laugh, maybe to comment on how cute the drawing was, or ask more questions about Emma. Instead, he watched her expression shift in real time, watched the polite interest drain from her eyes and get replaced by something colder, something calculating. "Oh," Jennifer had said flatly, "you have a daughter." "Yeah, she is amazing. You would love her. She is so—" "Is her mother in the picture?" The question had cut Nathan off mid-sentence. "No," he had said quietly. "My wife passed away 6 years ago. It has just been me and Emma since then." Jennifer had nodded slowly, and Nathan could practically see the mental calculations happening behind her eyes. Single father, full custody, dead wife, baggage. "I see," she had said, and the temperature at the table had dropped by about 20 degrees. The rest of the dinner had been painful. Jennifer had given one-word answers to his questions, checked her phone repeatedly, and barely touched her food. Nathan had known it was over before the entrees even arrived, but he had held on to hope anyway, because hope was all he had left after 6 years of this exact same pattern playing out over and over again. Women loved him until they found out about Emma. Then they disappeared. Now sitting alone at the table while Christmas music played and happy couples clinked glasses all around him, Nathan felt the familiar weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. He thought about Emma at home with Claire, probably bouncing off the walls with excitement about Santa's impending visit. He thought about the look on her face when he came home alone again, when she asked him how his special dinner went, and he had to find a way to explain that it did not work out without breaking her heart. He thought about Rachel. His wife had been gone for 6 years now, taken from him by a drunk driver who had run a red light on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. One moment, Rachel had been driving home from the grocery store, probably singing along to the radio the way she always did, and the next moment she was gone. Just like that. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to tell her one more time how much he loved her. Emma had been 18 months old when it happened. She did not remember her mother at all, just knew her from photographs and the stories Nathan told her at bedtime. Sometimes, that felt like the cruelest part of the whole thing, that Emma would never know the woman who had loved her so fiercely, who had spent hours decorating her nursery and reading parenting books and crying happy tears when she held her newborn daughter for the first time. Nathan reached for his coat. There was no point in sitting here any longer marinating in his own humiliation while the restaurant buzzed with holiday cheer around him. He would go home, hug his daughter, help her set out cookies for Santa, and try to forget that this night had ever happened. He would try to forget, just like he had tried to forget all the other times. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Nathan had just pushed back his chair and was reaching for his wallet when he heard a voice cutting through the restaurant noise with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. "Can you be my new husband?" He froze with his hand halfway to his back pocket, certain he had misheard. The voice had come from somewhere to his right, and it was female calm and completely serious. Nathan turned his head slowly, half expecting to find someone talking on the phone or addressing another table entirely. Instead, he found himself looking directly at a woman who appeared to have stepped out of a completely different world. She was sitting alone at the table next to his, and everything about her screamed success and sophistication in a way that made Nathan suddenly very aware of his off-the-rack dress shirt and department store tie. Her blonde hair cascaded in elegant waves over bare shoulders that were framed by a stunning red dress, the kind of fitted designer piece that probably cost more than Nathan's monthly mortgage payment. Pearl drop earrings caught the candlelight as she tilted her head slightly, and an expensive watch glinted on her wrist as she set down her wine glass. She was beautiful. There was no denying that, but it was her eyes that really caught Nathan's attention. They were blue sharp and intelligent, and they were looking at him with an expression that held no trace of humor or mockery. She was completely serious. "Excuse me, Nathan," managed, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. "Can you be my new husband?" the woman repeated as casually as if she were asking him to pass the salt. "I heard everything your date said to you just now, and I have a proposition." Nathan stared at her. His brain seemed to have short-circuited completely, unable to process what was happening. He had just been publicly humiliated by one woman, and now another woman. A stranger, a beautiful stranger in a red dress, was asking him to marry her. "You are insane," he said. Because it was the only response that made any sense. Probably the woman agreed, and there was something almost like a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "But I am also very alone, and based on what I just witnessed, so are you." The words hit Nathan harder than they should have, maybe because they were true. He had been alone for 6 years, ever since Rachel died. He had tried dating, tried putting himself out there, tried to believe that maybe there was someone else out there who could love him and Emma the way Rachel had. But every attempt had ended the same way, with rejection and disappointment, and the growing certainty that he was destined to spend the rest of his life alone. "Sit down," the woman said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "Let me buy you dinner and explain what I mean." "I already had dinner," Nathan pointed out, even as his feet carried him toward her table against his better judgment. There was something about this woman, something in her voice that was not pity or condescension. She just sounded tired, like she understood exactly what he was feeling, because she had felt it herself. "Then let me buy you a drink," she amended, as Nathan lowered himself into the chair across from her. "My name is Victoria Hayes, and I promise I am not completely crazy. Just partially." Nathan almost laughed despite himself. Nathan Cole. And I reserve the right to disagree about the crazy part. Victoria signaled the waiter and ordered a bottle of wine without asking Nathan what he wanted, which should have been presumptuous, but somehow felt efficient instead. When the waiter left, she folded her hands on the table and regarded Nathan with those sharp blue eyes. "Let me tell you a story," Victoria said. "For the past 3 years, my family has been pressuring me to get married. Every holiday dinner, every family gathering, they parade eligible men in front of me, like I'm supposed to pick one off a shelf. Investment bankers, lawyers, the sons of my father's business partners, men who look perfect on paper and are absolutely soulless in person." Nathan said nothing, just watched her as she spoke. "Every man I have dated has only wanted 2 things. Victoria continued, her voice flat and matter-of-fact. "My money or my connections. I built my company from nothing. Started it in my garage 10 years ago with a used laptop and a dream that everyone told me was stupid. Now I have over 200 employees and a corner office with a view of the city. And suddenly, everyone wants a piece of what I have built. Men who would not have looked twice at me a decade ago now fall all over themselves to take me to dinner." The waiter returned with the wine, and Victoria picked up her glass but did not drink. She just held it, staring at the deep red liquid, like it held answers to questions she had not asked yet. "I want a family," she said quietly. And something in her voice shifted, became more vulnerable. A real family. Not a transaction, not a business arrangement disguised as a marriage. Just people who actually care about each other. Nathan understood that ache, that longing for something whole. He had felt it every single day since Rachel died, that desperate need for connection and belonging that never seemed to get satisfied no matter how hard he tried. "Why me?" he asked. "You do not know anything about me." "I know you have a daughter," Victoria said, and Nathan's heart skipped a beat. "I heard you talking about her before your date showed up. You said she drew you a picture of a reindeer this morning, and your entire face lit up when you mentioned her. You love her. Anyone with eyes can see that." Nathan thought about Emma's lopsided reindeer drawing currently displayed on their refrigerator at home with half a dozen magnets holding it in place. "She is everything to me," he said honestly. Victoria nodded, and then she said something that made Nathan's breath catch in his chest. "I cannot have children." The words came out flat, emotionless, like she had said them so many times that they no longer carried any weight. But Nathan could see the pain underneath, could see the way her fingers tightened slightly around her wine glass medical condition. Victoria continued, "Irreversible. When I told my ex-fiancé, he called off our wedding, said he wanted a real family, and I could not give him that." Nathan felt anger flare in his chest on her behalf. "That is horrible." "It is," Victoria agreed simply. "But it is also reality. And here is what I realized tonight watching your date walk out on you. You have a daughter who needs a mother. I want a child, but cannot have one. You keep getting rejected because you have a kid. I keep getting rejected because I cannot have them." She set down her wine glass and looked at him directly. "It makes sense," she said. "We could help each other." Nathan stared at her, his mind racing. She was serious. This beautiful, successful stranger was actually proposing that they get married based on nothing more than a chance encounter in an Italian restaurant on Christmas Eve. It was insane. It was absolutely, completely insane. But she was not looking at him like he was broken. She was looking at him like he might be the answer to something. "You do not know me," Nathan said again, but his voice was weaker this time. "Then let us fix that," Victoria replied. "Give me your number. Let me meet your daughter. Let us see if this crazy idea could actually work." Nathan's hands were trembling again, but this time it was not from humiliation. It was something else entirely. Something that felt dangerous and exciting and terrifying all at once. "I do not know," he said honestly. "You do not have to know," Victoria said, and her voice was gentle now, almost kind. "You just have to give me a chance." They stayed at that restaurant for 2 more hours, long after most of the other diners had finished their meals and headed home to their families. The Christmas music kept playing softly in the background, and the candle between them burned down to a stub. But Nathan barely noticed any of it. He was too busy talking, really talking in a way he had not done with anyone in years. Victoria told him about her company, a software firm that developed apps for healthcare management. She had started it in her garage, with nothing but determination and a vision, working 18-hour days for years before finally landing her first major contract. Now she had offices in 3 cities and clients across the country, and she was proud of what she had built. Genuinely proud, in a way that was not arrogant or boastful. Nathan told her about Emma, about how she loved drawing more than anything in the world, how she filled sketchbook after sketchbook with pictures of animals and flowers and imaginary creatures, about how she hated broccoli with a passion that bordered on theatrical, complete with dramatic gagging sounds whenever it appeared on her plate. About how she carried a stuffed bunny named Snowflake everywhere she went and talked to it like it was a real friend. "She sounds wonderful," Victoria said, and there was something wistful in her voice. "She is." Nathan agreed. "She is the best thing that ever happened to me." But even as they talked and laughed and slowly relaxed in each other's company, Nathan felt the weight of his past pressing down on him. He could not talk about Emma without eventually talking about Rachel. And when Victoria gently asked about his wife, Nathan found the words spilling out before he could stop them. It was an ordinary Tuesday. He began staring at the tablecloth. "I was at work, reviewing spreadsheets, doing the same thing I did every day." And then my phone rang. He could still remember the exact moment, could still hear the voice of the hospital administrator saying his name like a question. "Mr. Cole, this is Memorial Hospital. There has been an accident." Rachel was driving home from the grocery store. Nathan continued quietly. "She had called me right before she left, asked if I wanted anything special for dinner. I said no. Just whatever she felt like making. Those were the last words I ever said to her. No, just whatever you feel like." Victoria reached across the table and placed her hand over his, but she did not speak. She just let him talk. A drunk driver ran a red light and T-boned her car. She was pronounced dead on arrival. They said she probably did not feel anything, that had happened too fast. But I do not know if that is supposed to make me feel better or worse. Nathan had driven to the hospital without any memory of getting in his car or navigating the streets. He just remembered arriving, being led to a small room where a doctor with kind eyes told him that his wife, the mother of his child, the love of his life, was gone. Emma was 18 months old, Nathan said, his voice cracking slightly. She was at home with a babysitter. For weeks afterward, she kept asking where Mommy was. She would toddle around the house looking for her, and I did not know how to explain that Mommy was never coming home. He had learned to do a lot of things in the years since Rachel's death. He learned to braid hair by watching YouTube tutorials at 2 in the morning when he could not sleep. He learned to cook meals that Emma would actually eat, though he still burned things more often than he cared to admit. He learned to be both mother and father, to kiss away tears and check for monsters under the bed, and read bedtime stories with all the different voices, even though Rachel had always been better at that than him. His sister Claire had moved in with them for 3 months after the funeral, helping Nathan navigate the impossible task of grieving while caring for a toddler. She had been his rock, his lifeline, the only reason he had not completely fallen apart. But eventually, Claire had gone back to her own life, her own family, and Nathan had been left alone with a daughter who needed him to be strong even when he felt like he was dying inside. "I started dating again about 2 years ago," Nathan admitted. "My sister kept saying I needed to put myself out there, that Emma needed a mother figure, that Rachel would not want me to be alone forever. And maybe she was right about all of that. But every single time, it ends the same way." He looked up at Victoria, meeting her eyes for the first time since he started talking. "Women smile at me, seem interested. And then I mention Emma, and I can see it happen the moment they realize I'm a package deal. Suddenly, they remember they have early meetings tomorrow, or they are not really looking for anything serious right now. They disappear, and I am left explaining to Emma why Daddy's new friend is not coming over anymore." Victoria squeezed his hand. "That is their loss," she said firmly. "Every single one of them." Then she told him her own story. She had been diagnosed with premature ovarian failure at 28, right in the middle of planning her wedding to David, a successful lawyer she had dated for 3 years. When she told him about the diagnosis, he had been silent for 3 full days. Then he had sat her down in their living room and said the words that still echoed in her head years later. "I want a real family. This is not what I signed up for. He had called off the wedding 2 months before the date moved out of their shared apartment and married someone else within a year. Victoria had thrown herself into her work, building her company into the success it was today, but she had never stopped wanting what David had taken from her. The dream of a family, the dream of being a mother. My parents keep parading eligible men in front of me, Victoria said, her voice bitter. But none of them see me. They see my bank account, my company, my connections. They see what they can get from me, not who I actually am. By the time they finally asked for the check, the restaurant was nearly empty. Nathan looked at Victoria, really looked at her, and saw not a beautiful stranger in an expensive dress, but a woman who was just as broken and lonely as he was. Two souls damaged by different tragedies searching for the same thing. Victoria pulled out her phone. "Your number," she said. It was not a question. Nathan hesitated for just a moment, and then he gave it to her. His hands were still trembling when she texted him immediately, and he looked down to see the message on his screen. "This is Victoria. Call me when you are ready." She left cash on the table enough to cover both their meals, plus a generous tip, and then she stood and put on her coat. Before she left, she looked back at him one more time. "I meant everything I said tonight," she told him. "This might be crazy, but crazy might be exactly what we both need." And then she was gone, leaving Nathan alone at the table with his phone in his hand and a strange new feeling blooming in his chest. For the first time in 6 years, he felt something other than resignation. He felt hope. Nathan did not call Victoria for 3 days. He spent those 3 days overthinking everything, turning their conversation over and over in his mind like a puzzle he could not solve. He would pick up his phone, scroll to her contact, and then set it down again without dialing. He would draft text messages, delete them, draft new ones, and delete those too. Part of him was terrified. Victoria Hayes was so far out of his league that it was almost laughable. She ran a successful company, wore designer clothes, and moved through the world with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. Nathan was a mid-level accountant who clipped coupons and worried about saving enough for Emma's college fund. But another part of him could not stop thinking about the way Victoria had looked at him in that restaurant. She had not seen his khakis from Target, or his outdated haircut, or the wedding ring he still wore on a chain around his neck. She had seen something else entirely. On the 4th day, his phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen, and Nathan's heart immediately started racing. "You are overthinking this," she said, when he answered without even bothering to say hello. Nathan sat down heavily on his couch. It was late evening, and Emma was already asleep in her room down the hall. The house was dark, except for the glow of the Christmas tree lights in the corner, the tree they had decorated together the week before, with ornaments Emma had made in kindergarten. "How do you know?" he asked. "Because I have been doing the same thing Victoria admitted. I almost deleted your number twice." Something about her honesty made Nathan relax slightly. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "She has been through enough. I cannot bring someone into her life who might disappear." "You will never be completely sure," Victoria replied. "That is not how life works. You just have to decide if it is worth the risk." Silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Nathan looked at the Christmas tree, at the paper snowflakes Emma had hung crookedly on the lower branches, at the star on top that was slightly lopsided because he had let her place it herself. "Saturday," he finally said. "There is a park near my house, 10 in the morning. I will be there," Victoria promised. And the relief in her voice told Nathan that she had been just as scared as him. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. Nathan woke up at 6, unable to sleep, and spent an hour cleaning the house, even though Victoria was not coming inside. Then he made Emma her favorite breakfast chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream and tried to figure out how to explain what was happening. "We are meeting someone at the park today," he said, aiming for casual and probably missing by a mile. Emma looked up from her pancakes, whipped cream on her nose. "Who? A friend of mine. Her name is Victoria. Is she nice?" Nathan thought about Victoria's sharp blue eyes, the way she had stood up to her own loneliness with such unflinching honesty. "I think so," he said, "but I want you to help me figure that out." Emma nodded seriously, as if she understood the weight of the task she had been given. "Okay, Daddy, I will help." Victoria arrived at the park exactly on time, which should not have surprised Nathan, but somehow did. She looked different than she had at the restaurant, less like a CEO and more like a person. She was wearing jeans and a soft cream-colored sweater, and her blonde hair was down instead of carefully styled. She looked beautiful, Nathan realized, but in a more approachable way. She also looked terrified. "Hi," Victoria said, and her voice was slightly breathless. "I was not sure you would actually come. I almost did not," Nathan admitted. "But someone told me I was overthinking things." Victoria's laugh was nervous but genuine. Smart person. Emma had been hiding behind Nathan's leg, peeking out at Victoria with curious eyes. Now she stepped forward slightly, still clutching her stuffed bunny snowflake. "Hi, Emma," said in her small, clear voice. "I am Emma. What is your name?" Victoria crouched down, immediately lowering herself to Emma's eye level. It was such a natural gesture, and Nathan felt something shift in his chest, watching her do it. "I am Victoria," she said. "That is a beautiful name you have. And who is this?" She pointed at Snowflake. "This is Snowflake," Emma explained. "She is my best friend. She goes everywhere with me." "She is lovely," Victoria said. "Seriously. Does she like parks?" Emma's face scrunched up as she considered the question. "She likes the ducks. Can we feed the ducks?" "I brought bread," Nathan said, pulling a plastic bag out of his pocket. He had remembered at the last minute grabbing the end of a loaf that was going stale anyway. Emma's eyes lit up. "Come on," she said, grabbing Victoria's hand without hesitation. "I will show you the best spot. There is one duck who is really fat, because I always give him extra bread." Victoria looked up at Nathan surprised and touched by Emma's easy acceptance. He just shrugged and smiled, following, as his daughter dragged this stranger toward the pond. The morning passed in a blur of quacking ducks, scattered breadcrumbs, and Emma's endless chatter. She told Victoria about her school, about her best friend Maria, about the dragon she was trying to learn how to draw. Victoria listened to every word with genuine attention, asking questions that showed she was actually paying attention. "What color is your dragon?" Victoria asked. "Purple," Emma said firmly. "With green wings and orange fire. But the wings are hard. They keep coming out wrong. I bet if you keep practicing you will get them just right," Victoria said. "Can I see your drawing sometime?" Emma's face transformed with delight. "Really? You want to see them?" "I really do." When the bread ran out, and Emma started bouncing toward the playground, Nathan found himself walking beside Victoria in companionable silence. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "Thank you for inviting me," Victoria replied. "She is wonderful, Nathan. Truly." "I know." He watched Emma climb the playground structure, her blonde curls bouncing. "She is the best thing about me." They stayed at the park for another hour until Emma declared herself hungry and ready for lunch. Nathan had intended to say goodbye then, to take things slowly, to not rush into anything. But then Emma asked the question, that changed everything. "Can Victoria come see my room?" Emma asked, tugging on Nathan's hand. "I want to show her my drawings." Nathan looked at Victoria, who was looking at Emma with an expression he could not quite read. "That is up to Victoria," he said. "I would love to," Victoria said softly. "If that is okay with your dad." And so Victoria Hayes, CEO and millionaire, ended up sitting on the floor of a 7-year-old's bedroom in a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood, surrounded by crayon drawings and glitter glue projects and a menagerie of stuffed animals. Emma's room was an explosion of color and creativity. Drawings covered every surface taped to the walls and spread across her desk and even pinned to her curtains. There were animals and flowers and imaginary creatures, dragons and unicorns, and something that might have been a dinosaur with butterfly wings. "Wow," Victoria breathed, looking around. "You did all of these?" "Yeah," Emma said proudly. "Daddy says I am an artist. Your daddy is right." They sat on the floor together, and Emma pulled out her current sketchbook to show Victoria her works in progress. Victoria admired each one, seriously offering praise and asking questions and treating Emma's art like it actually mattered. Then Victoria asked if she could draw something too. Nathan watched from the doorway as Victoria picked up a crayon and attempted to draw a rabbit. The result was lopsided and lumpy and looked more like a deformed potato than any animal Nathan had ever seen. Emma studied it with the critical eye of a 7-year-old art expert. Then she burst out laughing. "That is the silliest rabbit I ever saw." She giggled. Victoria laughed too, her whole face transforming with genuine joy. "I never said I was good at drawing. Maybe you could teach me." "Okay," Emma agreed. "First you have to make the ears longer, and the nose smaller, and the body should be more round like this." When Victoria finally left that afternoon, Emma hugged her goodbye without being prompted. "Can she come back?" Emma asked after Victoria's car disappeared around the corner. Nathan looked down at his daughter at the hope shining in her eyes. "Do you want her to?" "Yeah," Emma said. "She is nice, and she needs to practice her rabbits." Something in Nathan's chest expanded warm and bright. "Then I will ask her to come back." Victoria came back the next Saturday, and the Saturday after that, and the one after that. It became their routine, these weekend visits that started at the park or the playground and usually ended at Nathan's house with Emma showing off her latest drawings. Nathan found himself looking forward to Saturdays in a way he had not looked forward to anything in years, counting down the days until he would see Victoria again. But it was not just about him. It was about watching Victoria and Emma together, about seeing the bond that was forming between them with every passing week. Victoria learned Emma's routines and preferences without being told. She knew that Emma liked her sandwiches cut into triangles, not squares. She knew that Emma was scared of thunder and needed someone to hold her hand when storms rolled through. She knew that Emma's favorite color was purple, and her favorite animal was a penguin, and her favorite movie was about a princess who could control ice and snow. One Saturday afternoon, Emma got sick. It was just a stomach bug. Nothing serious. But Nathan had called Victoria to cancel their plans. An hour later, Victoria showed up at his door anyway. "You did not have to come," Nathan said. Surprised, "I wanted to," Victoria replied simply. "How is she miserable? But she will be okay." Victoria followed him inside, and they found Emma curled up on the couch under a blanket looking small and pale. She brightened slightly when she saw Victoria. "Hi, Emma," said weakly. "I am sick." I heard Victoria said, kneeling beside the couch. "Can I do anything to help?" What followed was an afternoon that Nathan would remember for the rest of his life. Victoria, who had probably never cared for a sick child in her life, sat beside Emma and held her hand. She learned how to check a temperature and give medicine. When Emma threw up, Victoria held her hair back without flinching, then helped her rinse her mouth and get settled back on the couch. "You are good at this," Emma mumbled sleepily as the medicine started to kick in. "I am learning," Victoria said softly. "From you and your daddy." Emma's eyes drifted closed, and she fell asleep with her hand still wrapped around Victoria's finger. Victoria looked up at Nathan, and there were tears in her eyes. "I have never done this before," she whispered. "Taken care of someone when they were sick." "You are doing great," Nathan told her honestly. "I always thought I would be terrible at it. That is what David said, that I was too focused on work to ever be a good mother." But sitting here with her, Victoria's voice trailed off. Nathan sat down on the armrest of the couch close enough to touch Victoria's shoulder. "He was wrong about you. You can see that, right?" Victoria did not answer, but she did not need to. The tears sliding down her cheeks said everything. That night, after Emma had recovered enough to eat some crackers and watch cartoons, Victoria stayed for dinner. They ordered pizza because Nathan was too tired to cook, and the three of them ate it straight out of the box while watching a movie about a fish trying to find his son. When Emma finally fell asleep for real, Nathan and Victoria sat together on the couch in the dim glow of the television. "Thank you," Nathan said. "For today, you did not have to stay." "I wanted to," Victoria said again, and Nathan was beginning to understand that this was just who she was. When she cared about something, she showed up completely. "Can I ask you something?" Victoria said after a moment. "Sure. Do you think about her? Your wife? When I am here?" Nathan was quiet for a long time. It was a question he had been asking himself for weeks, and he still was not sure of the answer. "Yes," he finally admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I am betraying her, like I am trying to replace her." "You are not replacing her," Victoria said quietly. "You cannot replace someone who is loved. That is not how it works." She told him about her own mother, who had died when Victoria was 12. Her father had eventually remarried, and Victoria had struggled with it, at first feeling like her stepmother was trying to take her mother's place. But over time, she had realized that love was not a zero-sum game. You could love someone new without loving the person you lost any less. "I am not trying to replace Rachel," Victoria said. "I could never do that. I am just trying to be part of your lives, if you will let me." Nathan looked at this woman who had appeared in his life on Christmas Eve with an impossible question. Who had been showing up every weekend since then, who had sat on the floor drawing terrible rabbits with his daughter and held her hand while she was sick. "I want to let you," he said honestly. "I just do not know if I am ready." "No one is ever ready," Victoria replied. She reached across the couch and took his hand. "But maybe we can figure it out together." Nathan looked at her hand in his, at her face illuminated by the soft glow from the television. She looked scared and hopeful and vulnerable, and Nathan realized he probably looked the same way. He squeezed her hand, and something unspoken passed between them. 2 months after that first meeting in the restaurant, Nathan found himself falling in love. He had not planned it. He had not even wanted it, not really. He had been so focused on protecting Emma, on making sure Victoria was safe, that he had forgotten to protect his own heart. And now, it was too late, because Victoria Hayes had somehow slipped past every defense he had built in 6 years of being alone. It happened in small moments. The way she laughed at Emma's terrible jokes, the way she always crouched down to Emma's level when they talked, The way she remembered details like Emma's upcoming spelling test, or the fact that Nathan's favorite coffee order was black with 2 sugars. It happened in bigger moments, too, like the night they decorated Nathan's small Christmas tree together, stringing lights and hanging ornaments, while Emma bounced around them in excitement. "This one is my favorite," Emma announced, holding up a lumpy clay ornament painted bright purple. "I made it in school. Miss Rodriguez said it was the most creative one in the whole class." "It is beautiful," Victoria said seriously. "Where should it go?" Emma directed the entire decorating process, like a tiny general instructing Nathan and Victoria exactly where each ornament belonged. When it came time to put the star on top, Emma insisted that Victoria lift her up to do it. Nathan watched as Victoria hoisted Emma onto her hip, steadying her while she reached up to place the star on the highest branch. Emma giggled. Victoria smiled, and Nathan felt his heart crack wide open. After Emma went to bed, Nathan and Victoria sat together on the couch, the Christmas tree lights casting a warm glow over everything. The house smelled like pine and sugar cookies, and outside the window, snow had started to fall softly. "I did not expect this," Victoria said quietly. "Expect what?" "To feel this way." She turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that made Nathan's breath catch. "When I asked you that crazy question on Christmas Eve, I was not looking for love. I was looking for a solution, a way to stop being so alone. But somewhere along the way, that changed." Nathan reached out and tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. His hand lingered against her cheek, and she leaned into his touch like it was something she had been waiting for. "I am falling in love with you," Nathan admitted. The words came out rough and honest and terrifying. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I already fell," she whispered. "I have been falling since the night you told me about Emma's reindeer drawing." Nathan cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was soft, at first tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. But then Victoria's hands came up to grip his shoulders, and the kiss deepened, and 6 years of loneliness seemed to melt away between them. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. "I want this to work," Victoria said. "I want to be in your life, in Emma's life, permanently." "I want that too," Nathan said. "But I need to warn you about something." Victoria's expression shifted to concern. "What?" "My cooking is terrible. Emma has been surviving on pizza and burnt chicken nuggets for years. If you are going to be part of this family, you might want to learn to cook." Victoria laughed, a surprised and delighted sound. "I think I can manage that." The following weeks were filled with new discoveries. Nathan learned that Victoria was ticklish behind her ears, and that she snored slightly when she was really tired. He learned that she worked too hard and forgot to eat lunch, and needed someone to remind her to take breaks. He learned that beneath all that CEO confidence was a woman who was just as scared and vulnerable as he was. Victoria learned that Nathan kept Rachel's wedding ring on a chain around his neck, that he still talked to her sometimes when he was alone, that he cried in the shower when the grief got to be too much. She learned that he felt guilty for falling in love again, like he was somehow betraying the woman who had died loving him. "You are not betraying her," Victoria told him one night, when they lay together on the couch after Emma had gone to bed. "Rachel loved you. She would want you to be happy, I know," Nathan said. "But sometimes knowing something in your head and feeling it in your heart are 2 different things." Victoria kissed his forehead. "Then I will keep reminding you, as many times as it takes." The moment Nathan knew he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Victoria came on a random Tuesday morning. Emma had accidentally called Victoria Mommy over breakfast, and everyone had frozen Emma with wide, scared eyes. Nathan, with his heart in his throat. Victoria, with tears suddenly streaming down her face. "I am sorry," Emma whispered, looking like she had done something terribly wrong. I did not mean to. I know you are not my mommy. My mommy is in heaven. Victoria was on her knees beside Emma's chair before the child could finish her sentence. Hey, Victoria said softly, taking Emma's small hands in hers. You did not do anything wrong. I promise. But I called you the wrong name. It is not the wrong name if it feels right to you. Victoria's voice was thick with emotion. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. I'm not trying to replace your mommy. No one could ever do that. But I love you, Emma. And if you want to call me mommy, sometimes that would make me very happy. Emma threw her arms around Victoria's neck. I love you too, she mumbled against Victoria's shoulder. And I like having you here. Nathan stood in the kitchen doorway watching the two of them embrace, and he knew with absolute certainty that this was what he wanted. This was what Rachel would have wanted for him and Emma, not for them to be alone forever, but to find someone who could love them as completely as she had. That night, after Emma was asleep, Nathan and Victoria sat on the porch and talked about the future. I want to be in your lives permanently, Victoria said again. But you need to know that my family is going to be a problem. What do you mean? Victoria sighed, and some of the light went out of her eyes. My parents have certain expectations. They will not understand this at first. They will probably try to talk me out of it. Because of me? Nathan asked. Because of everything. The fact that we met in a restaurant. The fact that you are not from their world. The fact that Emma is not biologically mine. Victoria shook her head. They're going to say I am making a mistake. Nathan took her hand. Are you? No. Victoria's voice was firm. This is the first thing in my life that has felt completely right. But I need you to be prepared for some difficult conversations. I can handle difficult conversations, Nathan said, as long as you are beside me. Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder. I am not going anywhere. Have you ever taken a chance on something that seemed impossible? Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. But Nathan and Victoria were about to face their biggest test yet. Keep watching to see what happens next. Victoria's parents wanted to meet Nathan. She told him about the invitation one evening in late February, her voice careful and controlled, in a way that immediately put Nathan on edge. They were sitting at his kitchen table after dinner. Emma having just gone to her room to work on her latest drawing, and Victoria was staring at her wine glass like it held all the answers to questions she was afraid to ask. It is time, Victoria said. They have been asking about you for weeks. I cannot put them off any longer. Nathan's stomach dropped. He had known this was coming, had been dreading it since Victoria first mentioned her parents' expectations all those weeks ago. But knowing something is coming and actually facing it are two very different things. Are you sure? He asked. No, Victoria admitted. But we cannot avoid them forever. What have you told them about me? Victoria's jaw tightened slightly. That I am seeing someone. That it is serious. Nathan noticed what she had not said. You did not mention Emma. I wanted them to meet you both first, to see how good this is before they start judging. Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. It will be fine. Once they see us together, they will understand. But something in her voice suggested she did not quite believe that herself. The dinner was scheduled for Friday night at Victoria's parents' house. Nathan spent the entire week alternating between nervous preparation and outright panic. He bought a new shirt because he could not afford a new suit, and he helped Emma pick out her best dress, a purple one with sparkles, that she had worn exactly twice because Nathan usually forgot about special occasions until the last minute. "Are these the people who are Victoria's mommy and daddy?" Emma asked as Nathan helped her with her hair on Friday evening. "That is right," Nathan said, trying to keep his voice calm. "They want to meet us. Are they nice?" Nathan hesitated. "I do not know them yet, but I am sure they will be." It was a lie, and Nathan knew it even as he said it. Victoria had told him enough about her parents for him to understand that nice was not a word that applied to Richard and Margaret Hayes. They were wealthy, powerful, and had very specific ideas about what kind of person their daughter should marry. An accountant with a 7-year-old from a previous marriage was probably not what they had in mind. The drive to Victoria's parents' house took them through neighborhoods that got progressively more expensive with every turn. By the time Nathan pulled up to the address Victoria had given him, Emma's face was pressed against the car window in amazement. "Is this a castle?" she breathed. It was not a castle, but it was close enough. The house was a massive colonial revival, with a circular driveway, white columns by the front door, and manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than Nathan made in a year. Every window glowed with warm light, and there was a fountain in the front yard that Nathan suspected did not come from Home Depot. "This is where Victoria grew up?" Emma asked. "I guess so." Nathan managed his hands sweating on the steering wheel. Victoria met them at the front door, and Nathan's heart sank when he saw her. She was dressed differently than usual, more formally, with her hair pulled back severely, and pearls at her throat. She looked beautiful, but she also looked like a stranger, like the CEO he had glimpsed that first night in the restaurant, rather than the woman who drew terrible rabbits on his living room floor. "You look nice," Victoria said, kissing Nathan's cheek. Her lips felt cold. She led them inside, and Nathan tried not to gawk like a tourist. The foyer had marble floors that probably cost more than his car. A crystal chandelier hung overhead, throwing rainbow prisms of light across the walls. The art on the walls was definitely original, not prints, and Nathan did not want to think about what any of it might be worth. Emma clutched Snowflake to her chest and stuck close to Nathan's side. "Mother, Father," Victoria said as they entered the living room, "this is Nathan Cole, and this is his daughter Emma." Richard Hayes was tall and silver-haired, with the kind of distinguished look that came from years of being wealthy and knowing it. He shook Nathan's hand with a grip that felt more like an evaluation than a greeting, his sharp eyes taking in Nathan's off-the-rack shirt and discount store shoes. Margaret Hayes was elegant in a way that made Nathan feel like he had tracked mud into a museum. She wore pearls and a silk blouse, and her expression could have frozen water at 50 paces. Her gaze swept over Nathan and Emma with obvious distaste. "How lovely," Margaret said, her tone suggesting exactly the opposite. "Please sit down." The dining room was just as intimidating as the rest of the house. The table could have seated 20, though only 5 places were set at one end. There were 7 courses planned, each with different silverware, and Nathan watched Emma's face go from curious to overwhelmed as she tried to figure out which fork to use. The interrogation began before the soup course arrived. So Nathan, Richard said, leaning back in his chair with the casual authority of a man who had never been questioned in his life. "Victoria tells us you work in accounting." "That is right," Nathan said, grateful for a straightforward question. "I am a senior accountant at Morrison & Associates. It is a mid-sized firm, but very stable." "Stable," Richard repeated, as if the word tasted strange in his mouth. "And how long have you been in that position?" 8 years. "I see." Richard exchanged a glance with his wife that communicated entire volumes of judgment. "And you are raising your daughter alone?" Nathan felt Victoria tense beside him, but he answered calmly. "Yes, My wife passed away 6 years ago. I am sorry for your loss, Margaret said. But there was no real sympathy behind the words. Her eyes had lingered on Emma, who was sitting very still and very quiet, looking smaller than Nathan had ever seen her. Thank you, Nathan said tightly. Victoria tried to shift the conversation. Emma is incredibly talented, she said brightly. She is an amazing artist. Show them the drawing you made last week, Emma. Emma looked at her plate. I do not have it with me, she mumbled. How nice, Margaret said, dismissively. Then turned back to Nathan. Children that age need stability, structure, a proper family unit. She has that. Nathan said, his jaw tightening. Does she? Richard leaned forward. A single father working a modest job. No mother figure. That hardly seems ideal. Father. Victoria started. I am just being realistic, Victoria. Richard cut her off without looking at her. You cannot ignore facts. The fact is that your circumstances are unconventional. Nathan wanted to point out that there was nothing unconventional about loving his daughter and doing his best to raise her well. He wanted to ask what exactly made a proper family unit in Richard Hayes's eyes. But before he could say anything, Margaret delivered the final blow. Victoria deserves more than someone's best. Margaret said, her voice like ice. She deserves exceptional. She has built an empire. She comes from a good family. And you want her to throw all of that away to play mother to someone else's child. The words hit like a slap. Across the table, Emma's fork clattered against her plate. When Nathan looked at her, his heart shattered. Her eyes were wet, her lip trembling, her small body rigid with the effort of not crying. Excuse me, Nathan said, standing so abruptly that his chair scraped against the floor. Emma, come on. We are leaving. Nathan Victoria stood too, her face pale. No. Nathan's voice came out harder than he meant it to, but he did not care. This was a mistake. Please do not go, Victoria pleaded. Let me talk to them. Nathan gestured at her parents, who were watching the scene with expressions that suggested they had expected exactly this outcome. Talk to them about what they just called my daughter a burden. There is nothing to talk about. They just need time. They understand perfectly, Nathan said flatly. We are not good enough for you, and maybe they are right. Victoria's face crumpled. Do not say that. But Nathan was already taking Emma's hand. She was crying silently now, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched Snowflake to her chest. I am sorry I put you through this, Nathan said to Victoria, and he meant it. He was sorry for a lot of things right now. Sorry he had let himself hope. Sorry. He had brought his daughter into a situation where people would look at her like she was a problem to be solved. He walked out without looking back. In the car, Emma sobbed the whole way home. They hate me, she cried. They think I am bad. They do not hate you, Nathan said. But the words felt hollow. They just do not know you. They think I am making everything wrong. They think Victoria should not be with us because of me. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. He had no idea what to say. Everything he could think of felt like a lie. When they got home, Emma ran straight to her room and slammed the door. Nathan stood in the empty hallway, listening to his daughter cry through the walls, and felt something inside him break. Victoria called that night. Nathan did not answer. She called again the next morning, and the morning after that. She left voicemails that Nathan deleted without listening to. She sent texts that he read once and then ignored. I am so sorry. Please let me explain. They were wrong. I told them so. Please do not shut me out. Part of Nathan wanted to answer. Part of him wanted to hear whatever explanation Victoria could offer, wanted to believe that there was some way to fix what had happened. But every time he thought about picking up the phone, he remembered Emma's face at that dinner table, the way she had shrunk into herself, the way she had looked at him with eyes full of tears and whispered, "They hate me." He could not put her through that again. He would not. On the fourth day, Victoria showed up at his door. Nathan opened it and found her standing on his porch looking nothing like the polished CEO he had first met. Her hair was uncombed. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she was wearing jeans and an old sweater instead of her usual designer clothes. "What do you want?" Nathan asked, not inviting her in. "To fix this," Victoria said. "To explain. To beg if I have to. You cannot fix this." "Yes, I can." Victoria's voice cracked. "I talked to my parents. I told them they were completely out of line. I told them if they ever speak to you or Emma like that again, they will never see me again." Nathan shook his head. "An apology will not change what they think. They made it very clear how they feel about us." "They were wrong." "Were they?" Nathan's voice rose despite himself. "Look at us, Victoria. You live in penthouses. I rent a 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood your parents probably would not drive through. You run a company worth millions. I push papers in a cubicle. We do not fit in your world. I do not care about any of that. But your family does. And they always will." Nathan felt all the exhaustion of the past 4 days crashing down on him. Every holiday, every family event, every time we are around them, we will be the outsiders. Emma will feel it. I saw her face at that dinner, Victoria. I will not put her through that again. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "So that is it. You are just giving up." "I am protecting my daughter by pushing me away." Victoria took a step forward, her voice desperate. "Nathan, I love Emma. I love you. Does that not matter? Does that not count for anything?" "It is not enough," Nathan said, and the words cost him more than he could say. Love is not enough when the world keeps telling a 7-year-old that she is not wanted. "My parents are not the world, they are your world." Nathan's voice was flat, exhausted. "And I will not subject Emma to a lifetime of feeling like she does not belong. I will not let her grow up in a family where she is treated like she is less than." Victoria stared at him, tears streaming down her face. "So, you are choosing for her? You are not even going to ask what she wants. She is 7. She does not understand. She understands more than you think." Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "She understands that someone cares about her, and you are taking that away because you are scared. I am being realistic. You are being a coward." The word hung in the air between them, harsh and unforgiving. Nathan felt it land like a physical blow, felt it burrow into his chest, where it would sit and fester for days. "Get out," he said quietly. "Nathan, get out of my house. We are done." Victoria stared at him for one long, terrible moment. Then she turned and walked away, without another word. Nathan closed the door and leaned against it, his whole body trembling. He heard Victoria's car start, heard it pull away from the curb and disappear down the street. He had done the right thing. He had protected Emma from a lifetime of judgment and rejection. He had done what any good father would do. Then why did it feel like he had just made the biggest mistake of his life? From upstairs, Nathan heard Emma's door open. She must have been listening, must have heard the entire conversation through the thin walls of their small house. Her footsteps came slowly down the stairs, and Nathan turned to see her standing on the bottom step, clutching Snowflake to her chest with both arms. Her eyes were red. She had been crying again. "Is Victoria gone?" Emma asked in a small voice. Nathan's throat closed up. "Yeah, sweetheart. Forever." The word hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. "Yeah," he managed. "Probably." Emma's face crumpled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "But I do not want her to go." "I know, baby." Nathan took a step toward her. "But it is complicated." "Is it because of me?" Emma asked, and the question stopped Nathan cold. "Because her parents do not like me?" "No, sweetheart, it is not." "Yes, it is." Emma's voice rose to something close to a shout, and Nathan realized with a shock that it was the first time she had ever yelled at him. "They said I was bad. They said you cannot give me good things. They said Victoria should not be with us because of me. They were wrong, Emma. They were wrong about everything." "Then why did you let them win?" Emma screamed. The tears were flowing freely now, her small body shaking with the force of her sobs. "Why did you make Victoria leave? She was nice to me. She made me happy. And you sent her away. I was trying to protect you. I do not want protection." Emma was crying so hard now that she could barely get the words out. "I want Victoria. I want her to come back. I want her to be my mom." The word echoed through the empty house, and Nathan felt his heart shatter into a million pieces. Emma turned and ran back upstairs. Her door slammed so hard the whole house seemed to shake. Nathan stood frozen in the hallway, unable to move, unable to think. He had wanted to protect Emma from rejection, from feeling unwanted, from the pain of loving someone who belonged to a world that would never accept her. Instead, he had taken away the one person who had made her feel whole. Instead, he had taught her that she was the reason good things could not happen. He had become the thing he was trying to protect her from. The next 3 days were the longest of Nathan's life. Emma barely spoke to him. She responded to questions with single words or shrugs. She picked at her food. She spent hours in her room with the door closed. But the worst part, the thing that finally broke Nathan completely, was when she stopped drawing. Nathan walked past Emma's room on the 3rd night and glanced through the open door. Her art supplies were sitting exactly where they had been since before the dinner at Victoria's parents' house. Crayons lined up in their box, sketchbooks stacked on her desk, everything clean and organized and completely untouched. Emma, who drew every single day without fail, who filled sketchbook after sketchbook with her creations, who saw the world as a canvas waiting to be covered in color. Emma had stopped drawing. That was when Nathan knew how badly he had messed up. He sat alone in the living room that night, staring at Rachel's photograph on the mantel. It was his favorite picture of her taken on their wedding day. She was laughing at something, her whole face lit up with joy, and Nathan had always loved the way you could see her happiness radiating out of the frame. "What would you do?" he whispered to the photograph. "What would you tell me?" But Rachel could not answer. She had been gone for 6 years, and no amount of staring at photographs would bring her back. Nathan thought about the kind of woman Rachel had been. Fierce, strong, unafraid to fight for what she believed in. She had stood up to bullies, challenged injustice, never backed down from a confrontation when she knew she was right. If Rachel had been at that dinner, she would not have quietly walked out. She would have told Richard and Margaret Hayes exactly what she thought of their judgment. She would have defended Nathan. And Emma with everything she had. She would have chosen love over fear. She would have been brave. And what had Nathan done? He had run. He had let fear make his decisions. He had failed. Emma failed Victoria, failed himself. He had failed Rachel too, in a way. Failed to be the man she had married. Failed to show their daughter what it meant to fight for the people you loved. But maybe it was not too late. If this scene made you angry, you are not alone. No child should ever be made to feel unwanted. But Nathan was about to learn that the biggest mistake is not falling down. It is refusing to get back up. Stay with us. On the fourth night, Claire showed up unannounced. Nathan opened the door to find his older sister standing on the porch with a bottle of wine and an expression that suggested she already knew everything. Claire was 40 years old, happily married with 2 kids of her own, and she had been Nathan's rock since the day Rachel died. She was also the only person in the world who could tell Nathan the truth, even when he did not want to hear it. "You look like hell," Claire said by way of greeting. "Thanks, Nathan," muttered, stepping aside to let her in. "Where are the kids? Mike has them. Girls' night out, except we are not going out. We are going to sit on your couch, and you are going to tell me what is going on." Claire set the wine on the coffee table and looked around the house. Where is Emma? Upstairs, avoiding me. And Victoria Nathan did not answer. He just sat down heavily on the couch and stared at the floor. Claire waited. When Nathan did not speak, she opened the wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed one to her brother. Then she sat in the armchair across from him and fixed him with the same look she used to give him when they were kids, and he was about to do something stupid. "Talk," she said. So Nathan talked. He told her everything. The dinner at Victoria's parents' house, the horrible things they had said, the way Emma had cried the whole way home. He told her about Victoria coming over, about the argument they had had about the word coward that still echoed in his head every time he closed his eyes. When he finished, Claire was quiet for a long moment. "You are an idiot," she finally said. "I was trying to protect Emma." From what Claire set down her wine glass with a sharp click. From being happy, Nathan opened his mouth to argue, but Claire was not finished. "Let me tell you what you actually did," she said, her voice fierce. "You just taught your daughter that she is the reason you cannot be happy, that loving her means sacrificing everything else, that she is a burden who makes good things impossible." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. "That is not what I meant. But that is what she learned." Claire's voice softened slightly. "Nathan, I love you. You are a great father. You have done an amazing job with Emma, especially considering everything you have been through. But sometimes you are so busy protecting her from imaginary future pain that you are causing real pain right now. Victoria's parents hate us." So what? Claire threw up her hands. "So they are terrible people. That does not mean you have to let them win. You are teaching Emma that when things get hard, you just give up. You are teaching her that love is not worth fighting for." Nathan's hands were shaking. He looked down at the wedding ring hanging around his neck, the gold band that Rachel had slipped on his finger 14 years ago. "What if it does not work?" he asked quietly. "What if I fight for Victoria, and it still falls apart? What if Emma gets even more hurt?" "What if it does work?" Claire countered. "What if you are throwing away the best thing that has happened to you in years because you are too scared to try? What if this is exactly what you and Emma need, and you are going to let a pair of judgmental snobs take it away from you?" Nathan did not have an answer for that. Claire stood up and walked over to Rachel's photograph on the mantel. She picked it up gently, looking at her sister-in-law's smiling face. "Rachel would have fought," Claire said quietly. "She would have told those people exactly where they could shove their judgment. She would have chosen love. She would have been brave." Claire set the photograph down and turned to face Nathan. "Be brave, Nathan. For Emma. For yourself. For Victoria." She headed toward the door, then stopped and looked back. "That woman loves you. really loves you, and she loves Emma. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How many people would have walked away the second they found out you were a package deal? Claire opened the door. Do not be an idiot, Nathan. Fight for your family. She left. Nathan sat alone in the silence, Claire's words echoing in his ears. Be brave. He thought about Rachel, really thought about her. Not the sanitized memory he had built up over 6 years, but the real woman. The woman who had once gotten into a screaming match with a stranger who had called a disabled person a derogatory name in public. The woman who had written strongly, worded letters to every politician who supported policies she disagreed with. The woman who had looked Nathan in the eye on their first date and told him she did not believe in playing games, that she liked him, and she thought they should go on another date. Rachel had never been afraid to fight for what she wanted, and Nathan had let fear turn him into someone she would not recognize. He got up from the couch and walked upstairs. He knocked on Emma's door. Go away, came the muffled response. Emma, please, I need to talk to you. Silence. I made a mistake, Nathan said through the door. A big one, and I need your help to fix it. A long pause. Then the door opened slowly. Emma stood there in her pajamas, her eyes red and puffy. Snowflake clutched in her arms. She looked so small, so hurt, and Nathan felt his heart break all over again for what he had done to her. What mistake? Emma asked quietly. I let fear make my decisions. Nathan knelt down so he was at her eye level. I was so scared of you getting hurt that I pushed away someone who loves you, someone who loves both of us. Victoria. Emma whispered. Yeah. Nathan took her small hands in his. I was wrong, sweetheart. Her parents were terrible, but that does not mean Victoria is like them. That does not mean we have to let them win. But they hate me. They do not know you, Nathan said firmly. And even if they never change, even if they never see how amazing and wonderful and talented you are, that does not make them right. You are good enough, Emma. You are perfect exactly the way you are. And anyone who cannot see that does not matter. Emma's lip trembled. Do you really mean that I really do? Nathan squeezed her hands. I love you more than anything in this world, and I thought protecting you meant keeping you away from people who might hurt you. But I was wrong. Real protection means teaching you to stand up to those people, teaching you to know your own worth, teaching you to fight for what matters. Victoria matters, Emma said quietly. She does. Nathan swallowed hard. So I need to know something. Do you still want Victoria in your life, even knowing her family might never accept us? Emma nodded immediately, her curls bouncing. Yes, I want her. I do not care about her mean parents. I just want Victoria. Nathan pulled his daughter into a hug, holding her tight against his chest. Then I am going to fight for her. I am going to try to make this right. What if she does not forgive you? Emma asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. Nathan thought about the look on Victoria's face when he had told her to leave, the devastation, the betrayal. She might not, he admitted. But I have to try. Emma pulled back and looked at him, with those serious eyes that always seemed to see more than a 7-year-old should. She will forgive you, she said with complete certainty. She loves us. Nathan hoped to God she was right. Nathan called Victoria that night. She did not answer. He called again the next morning. Straight to voicemail. He sent texts that went unread, left voicemails that were not returned. Every time his phone stayed silent, Nathan felt his hope slip a little further away. He deserved this, he knew. He had told Victoria to get out, had called their relationship a mistake. Why would she want to hear from him now? On the third day, Nathan drove to Victoria's office. The building was everything he had expected. A gleaming tower of glass and steel in the business district, with a lobby that probably cost more to furnish than Nathan made in a decade. He felt completely out of place in his ordinary clothes, surrounded by people in expensive suits who walked with the confident stride of success. The receptionist looked up when he approached the desk. She was young and polished, and clearly trained to spot people who did not belong. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but cool. "I am here to see Victoria Hayes. My name is Nathan Cole. Do you have an appointment?" "No, but—" "I am sorry, Ms. Hayes is not seeing anyone without an appointment today." The receptionist's smile was professional and completely dismissive. "Would you like to schedule something for next week, please?" Nathan said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Just 5 minutes. That is all I am asking." Something in his expression must have gotten through, because the receptionist's perfect composure cracked slightly. She picked up her phone and made a quiet call, speaking too low for Nathan to hear. 2 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Victoria stepped into the lobby. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes' hair, pulled back in a hasty ponytail face, pale and drawn. She looked like she had not slept in days, which Nathan guessed was probably true. She stopped about 10 feet away from him, her arms crossed over her chest. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice flat. "To apologize," Nathan said. "To beg you to give me another chance. To tell you that I was wrong about everything." Victoria's expression did not change. "You called this a mistake. I was the mistake." The words tumbled out faster than Nathan could control them. "Not you. Never you. I was scared, Victoria. I was so scared of Emma getting hurt again that I pushed away the one person who actually loved her. I pushed away the one person who loved me. My family will never accept you," Victoria said quietly. "You were right about that." "I do not care." Nathan took a step closer. "I do not need their approval. I do not need their acceptance. I just need you. You should care. It will be hard. Every holiday, every gathering. Let it be hard." Nathan's voice was fierce now. "Let them judge us. Let them look down on us. I do not care, Victoria, because you are worth it. You and Emma together, that is worth any amount of difficulty." Victoria's arms were still crossed, but Nathan could see her resolve wavering. There were tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. "I am willing to fight for this," Nathan continued. "I am willing to stand up to your parents, to anyone who tries to tell us we do not belong together. Because we do belong together. I know that now. I knew it before, but I was too scared to trust it. Nathan, I love you, Victoria." The words came out rough and honest and completely from his heart. "I am in love with you, not because of your money or your connections or what you can give Emma. I am in love with you. The woman who draws terrible rabbits and reads bedtime stories and sits on the floor with my daughter, like there is nowhere else in the world she would rather be." The tears were falling now, streaming down Victoria's face. "I am sorry," Nathan said again. "I am so sorry I hurt you. I am so sorry I said those things. You are not a substitute for Rachel. You are not temporary. You are the woman I want to build a life with. If you will let me. If you will give me one more chance." For one terrible moment, Victoria just stood there, and Nathan was sure she was going to tell him to leave. That he had hurt her too badly, that she could not trust him again, that it was over. Then she moved. She crossed the distance between them in 3 quick steps and collapsed against his chest, her arms going around his waist, her face pressed against his shoulder. "I was so hurt," she whispered, her voice broken. "I thought you did not want me. I thought everything we had built was just nothing. I wanted you, Nathan said into her hair. God, Victoria, I wanted you so much. I was just too afraid to fight for you. And now, Nathan pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Now, I'm going to fight every single day. For you. For Emma. For us. Victoria kissed him then, right there in the lobby of her office building, with the receptionist staring and other employees walking past, and none of it mattering even a little bit. It was a kiss that tasted like tears and forgiveness and second chances. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria laughed softly. What now, she asked. Nathan smiled for the first time in days. Now you come home. That evening, Victoria showed up at Nathan's house with art supplies for Emma. When Emma opened the door and saw Victoria standing there, she froze. Just completely stopped, like someone had pressed pause on a video. Hi, Victoria said softly. Emma launched herself forward and threw her arms around Victoria's waist, holding on like she was afraid Victoria might disappear. I am sorry. Emma sobbed against Victoria's shirt. I am sorry your parents do not like me. I will try to be better. I will. Hey. Victoria knelt down and took Emma's face in her hands. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. My parents were wrong. They were so wrong. And I told them that if they ever treat you that way again, they will lose me forever. Emma sniffled. Really, really. Victoria smiled through her own tears. You and your daddy are my family now. The family I choose. And nothing is going to change that. Forever, Emma asked. Forever, Victoria promised. You are stuck with me now, kid, if you will have me. Emma hugged her again, even tighter this time. Over the top of Emma's head, Victoria met Nathan's eyes. He nodded. Yes. Forever. 3 weeks later, Victoria sat across from her parents in a private room at an upscale restaurant downtown. She had chosen neutral ground on purpose. No mansion, no formal dining room, no place where Richard and Margaret Hayes had the home field advantage. Just a quiet restaurant where they could have a conversation without servants hovering, or crystal chandeliers reminding Victoria of every expectation she had failed to meet. Nathan and Emma were not there. This was a conversation Victoria needed to have alone. Her mother sipped her wine carefully, not meeting Victoria's eyes. Her father cleared his throat with the awkward discomfort of a man who was not used to being summoned by his own daughter. Victoria, Richard said, We have been thinking about what happened at dinner. Perhaps we were a bit harsh. I do not care what you have been thinking, Victoria interrupted. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. I am here to tell you what I have decided. Her mother's lips thinned. Victoria, I am going to marry Nathan. Victoria watched their faces as she said the words, watched the shock and disapproval flicker across their features. I am going to become Emma's mother. I am going to build a life with them. Victoria, be reasonable. Richard started. I am being more reasonable than I have ever been. Victoria leaned forward. For 35 years, I have tried to be what you wanted. The perfect daughter. The perfect businesswoman. The daughter you could show off to your country club friends. And I was miserable. She thought about the years of lonely holidays, the parade of suitable men who saw her as a prize to be won, rather than a person to be loved. The empty penthouse apartment where she used to sit alone and wonder if this was all her life would ever be. Then I met Nathan and Emma. And for the first time in my life I was happy, really genuinely happy. Her mother set down her wine glass with a sharp click. You barely know this man. He comes from a completely different world. I know he is kind, Victoria cut in. I know he is a devoted father. I know he makes me laugh. I know he looks at me like I am the most important person in the room, not because of my bank account or my company, but because of who I am." She looked her father directly in the eye, which is more than I can say for any man you have ever paraded in front of me. Richard's face went red. "That is not fair. Is it not?" Victoria sat back in her chair. "So here is what is going to happen. You have two choices." She held up one finger. "Choice 1. You accept Nathan and Emma. You come to our wedding. You be grandparents to a little girl who deserves to be loved, not judged. You become part of our lives." She held up a second finger. "Choice 2. You continue to look down on them, continue to think they are not good enough, and you will never see me again." Silence fell over the table. Victoria could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, but she kept her expression calm. She had spent her whole life trying to please these people, and she was done. "You cannot be serious," her mother said. "I have never been more serious about anything in my life." Victoria stood up. "You have 1 week to decide. After that, my door closes permanently." She walked out without looking back. 6 days passed in silence. Victoria told herself she was prepared for it. She had Nathan and Emma now, and that was enough. She did not need her parents' approval to be happy. But it still hurt. It hurt more than she wanted to admit. On the 7th day, her phone rang. "We would like to meet them again." Her mother said, her voice stiff and formal. Properly this time. Victoria's heart hammered. "Why?" A long pause. "Because you are our daughter, and we do not want to lose you." It was not an apology. It was not acceptance. But it was something. "Okay," Victoria said carefully. "But this time we do it my way. No mansion, no formal dinner, a park. Casual. And if either of you says one unkind word to Emma, we are done permanently. Understood?" Her mother said. They met the following Saturday at the same park, where Nathan and Victoria had first brought Emma together. It felt right somehow returning to the place where this had all begun. Victoria's parents arrived looking uncomfortable. Richard wore khakis like he was going to a costume party. Margaret had on slacks and a silk blouse, which was probably as casual as she had been in 30 years. Nathan and Emma were already there feeding the ducks. When Emma saw Victoria's parents approaching her, smile faded. She moved closer to Nathan, reaching for his hand. Victoria's heart sank. This was going wrong already. But then Emma did something unexpected. She walked up to Margaret and held out the bag of bread. "Do you want to feed the ducks?" Emma asked. Her voice was small but brave. "I brought extra." Margaret looked startled, like she had not expected Emma to speak to her. "Well, they are really hungry," Emma continued. "That fat one over there is my favorite. I named him Duke." Despite herself, Margaret's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Duke," she repeated. "Yeah, because he is fancy, like a duke." This time Margaret actually did smile. Small, but real. "I see," she said. She took the bread from Emma. "Show me which one is Duke." For the next hour, something shifted. Emma was completely herself, bright and funny and unguarded, talking about her drawings and school and the dragon pizza picture she had made. She asked Margaret about her favorite color, asked Richard if he had ever fed ducks before. And slowly, incrementally, Victoria's parents began to soften. Not all the way, not completely, but the ice that had seemed so impenetrable at that first dinner was starting to crack. By the end of the afternoon, Margaret turned to Nathan and said, "You seem like a good father." It was not much. It was not an apology or an acceptance, but it was more than before. 6 months later, Victoria's parents were still far from warm and fuzzy, but they showed up. They came to Emma's school art show, and Margaret even said, "She has real talent." They came to Sunday dinners at Nathan's modest house, making awkward small talk and trying to connect with a granddaughter who was slowly teaching them how to be human again. One Sunday evening after Victoria's parents left and Emma had gone to bed, Nathan and Victoria sat together on the couch. The house was quiet except for the soft sound of rain on the windows. "My mother apologized to you today," Victoria said, still sounding slightly stunned. "She actually said she was sorry for how she treated you at that first dinner." Nathan laughed softly. "I almost fell over when she said it. You and me both." Victoria leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on them. I know they are difficult." "They are your family," Nathan said simply. "I was not going to take that away from you." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and said, "I have something to ask you." "Okay." She pulled away from him, sliding off the couch. Nathan watched confused as she got down on one knee on his living room floor. His heart stopped. "Victoria." "Nathan Cole." Victoria's voice was trembling, but her eyes were steady. "A year ago, I asked you an impossible question in a restaurant on Christmas Eve. You probably thought I was crazy." "I definitely thought you were crazy, Nathan." "It's managed." Victoria laughed through the tears that were already forming. "And you were probably right. But that crazy question led me to you. To Emma. To the family I never thought I would have." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" Victoria asked. "Will you let me be Emma's mom? Will you build this life with me, even when it is messy and complicated, and involves feeding ducks with my difficult parents?" Nathan could not breathe, could not speak, could only stare at this woman who had walked into his life with an impossible question and changed everything. Yes, he finally managed. God, yes. Victoria laughed and cried simultaneously as she pulled the ring from the box and slid it onto his finger. They collapsed into each other's arms, both shaking with joy and relief. From upstairs, they heard a door open. Small footsteps padded down the stairs. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "What is happening?" I heard noises. Nathan and Victoria looked at each other, then at Emma. "Victoria asked me to marry her," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I said yes." Emma's eyes went wide as saucers. "Really? Really?" Emma screamed with joy and launched herself at both of them. The three of them ended up in a pile on the floor, laughing and crying and holding each other. "You are really going to be my mom?" Emma asked, looking up at Victoria with shining eyes. "Really, really," Victoria promised. "If that is okay with you." "That is the best Christmas present ever," Emma declared. Nathan looked at his daughter, at this woman, who had become their everything at the ring, glinting on his finger. "It is not Christmas yet, sweetheart," he pointed out. Emma grinned her gap-toothed grin. "I know, but it feels like it." She was right. It did. 1 year to the day after Nathan and Victoria first met, they got married. The ceremony was held at Giuseppe's Italian restaurant, transformed for the occasion, with white flowers, candles, and twinkling lights. It seemed fitting somehow, returning to the place where an impossible question had changed everything. Victoria's parents sat in the front row. Margaret cried during the vows, dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Richard looked uncomfortable in a way that suggested he might be fighting back tears of his own. Claire stood as Nathan's witness, her eyes red before the ceremony even began. Rachel would be so happy, she whispered to him before the music started. She would love Victoria. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a white dress with purple sparkles and carrying a bouquet of lilies. She walked down the aisle with Snowflake tucked under one arm because she had insisted that her best friend needed to be part of the wedding too. When Victoria appeared at the end of the aisle, Nathan forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful, radiant, in a simple white dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and approachable. Her blonde hair was down the way he liked it best, and she was smiling at him with an expression that said she still could not quite believe this was happening. Neither could Nathan. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and second chances, but Nathan barely heard the words. He was too busy looking at Victoria, too busy thinking about the journey that had brought them here. When it came time for their vows, Victoria went first. "Nathan," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "A year ago I asked a stranger in a restaurant if he could be my husband. I was desperate and lonely, and I had given up on ever finding real love." She squeezed his hands. "Then I met you. And Emma. And you showed me that family is not about blood or money or social status. It is about choosing each other every single day, even when it is hard." She turned slightly to include Emma, who was standing beside them with the biggest smile Nathan had ever seen. "Emma, I promise to love you and protect you and draw terrible rabbits with you forever. I promise to be there for every nightmare and every spelling test and every dragon drawing. I promise to be your mom, not because I am to be, but because I want to be. Because you are the daughter I never thought I would have, and I am so grateful you are mine." Emma was crying now, 2 happy tears that made her face shine. Nathan took a deep breath and began his own vows. "Victoria, a year ago I was sitting alone in this restaurant, humiliated and rejected, convinced I would spend the rest of my life alone. Then you asked me an impossible question, and everything changed." He looked at her, at this woman who had seen his broken pieces, and decided they were worth keeping. "You taught me that being brave does not mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and choosing love anyway. You taught me that family is something you build, not something you are born into. You taught me that it is okay to let someone else carry some of the weight." He glanced at Emma. "You saved us both. You gave Emma the mother she needed, and you gave me the partner I never thought I would find. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that. I promise to fight for you, for us, for this family we have built together." The officiant smiled. "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." Emma's hand shot up. "No one has any reasons," she announced loudly. "They are perfect together." The whole room burst into laughter. "I think that settles it," the officiant said. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Nathan kissed Victoria, while Emma cheered, and Claire sobbed, and even Margaret Hayes smiled through her tears. Outside the window, snow began to fall, softly coating the world in white. It was Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year since everything had changed, and Nathan knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where he was meant to be. 2 years later, on another Christmas morning, Nathan woke to the sound of giggling from the kitchen. He lay still for a moment, listening to Emma's voice and Victoria's laughter mixing together in a melody that never failed to make his heart swell. The smell of chocolate chip pancakes drifted through the house, along with the rich aroma of fresh coffee. When he finally made his way to the kitchen, he found his family at the stove. Victoria was wearing his old college sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, looking nothing like a CEO, and everything like the woman he loved. Emma, now 9 years old, stood on her step stool beside her, carefully flipping pancakes under Victoria's supervision. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Victoria said, grinning at him. "Emma is making breakfast. I can see that." Nathan leaned against the doorframe, content to just watch them. "Looks like she has gotten better than both of us. She has an excellent teacher," Emma said primly, making both adults laugh. On the refrigerator, held in place by a dozen magnets, was Emma's latest masterpiece, a family portrait done in crayon, showing 3 figures standing under a Christmas tree. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, "Daddy, Mommy, and me." Victoria's parents had continued to soften over the past 2 years. Last Christmas, Margaret had given Emma an expensive art set and spent an hour looking through her sketchbooks with genuine interest. Richard had taught Emma to play chess and had been delighted when she beat him 3 games in a row. They were not perfect grandparents, but they were trying, and that was enough. Nathan thought about the journey that had brought him here, from that terrible blind date to that impossible question, from loneliness and fear to love and family, from a man who had given up on happiness to a husband and father who woke up grateful every single day. "Daddy, look," Emma held up a pancake triumphantly. "Perfect flip. That is amazing, sweetheart." Nathan crossed the kitchen to join them, wrapping his arms around both his girls. "I am so proud of you." Emma beamed. Victoria leaned into him, pressing a kiss to his cheek. And Nathan held them both, this family he had never expected to have, and knew that he was exactly where he belonged. Sometimes, the craziest questions lead to the most beautiful answers. Sometimes, the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. And sometimes, if you are brave enough to say yes to the impossible, you find yourself standing in a kitchen on Christmas morning, surrounded by love and laughter and the smell of chocolate chip pancakes, with a heart so full it feels like it might burst. That was Nathan's life now, and he would not change a single thing. Friends, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button and join our channel family. We would love to have you with us for more heartwarming stories just like this one. If you believe in second chances and the power of love, drop a heart in the comments below. And if you know someone who needs a reminder that family is not always about blood, that it is about choosing each other every single day, please share this video with them. Your support means the world to us. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next story.